Hey guys, Matthew here from Heretics Reviews, and welcome to episode 3 of my best possible series, where I'm going to be going through every single episode 3 in the modern series, all the way from The Unquiet Dead up until A Town Called Mercy, picking my favourite and putting it into my best possible series. So sit back and enjoy. So then, episode 3s. I have a feeling that quite a few people are going to disagree with me on episode 3s because it's quite a mixed bag, really. Some of them you love, some of them you hate, and a few of them I've seen that I've told people I like, a few people don't like. So yeah, I'm far from expecting people to agree with me on this, but nevertheless, we're going to go through every single episode 3 from Series 1 to Series 7. And yeah, I think this episode 3 is just, you've warmed into the series, you're starting to get into the good stuff now, and the episodes start to become really good and really adventurous. So let's begin with the first episode 3 of Modern Who, which was The Unquiet Dead. So the first episode 3, The Unquiet Dead, which is a really, really weird one, because it's say I was sat bored and I was scrolling through TV channels and I happened to come across BBC Three or Watch or whatever, and I see The Unquiet Dead, I will always watch it and I will always thoroughly enjoy it because it's a great story. But if you put this next to all the other Doctor Who episodes and you ask me to pick one, this would not be one of the first I pick. It's a strange story, but I do thoroughly enjoy it. Just because I wouldn't pick it over other stories doesn't mean that I don't like it. I think the Gelth are brilliant, and I can imagine as a 9-year-old child them being like gas zombies. I thought that was very, very scary. I can imagine that really scaring me as a child, and when they possessed people, I thought they looked really, really scary as well. Obviously, they don't scare me now, but you know, trying to put myself back in the shoes of when I was 9 and when this episode did air, I can imagine it being very, very scary. And again, like I always say, I'm a sucker for historical episodes and historical figures, and I thought Charles Dickens in this episode was brilliant. And again, a really educational episode. I thought the set design was very good as well. Everything about this episode is pretty good. I mean, of course, it's not the strongest story in the world, but there's not that many faults with it. And of course, Gwyneth, who then became, well, the actress, of course, became Eve Miles, who then became Gwen Cooper. They actually combined them and made them related, which was a very nice reference. I thought it was pretty good. But yeah, great performance by Eve Miles as well as Gwyneth. So yeah, the performances from all round I thought were very good. The acting was great. The story was pretty good. I can't find many flaws. It's just a strange episode, one that I would watch if it was there, but if I had the choice, I wouldn't exactly choose it. So for me, all I can really conclude on The Unquiet Dead is it's just an average episode, really. Nothing really stands out and nothing's really at fault. So I just give The Unquiet Dead a 5 out of 10. Now on to the episode 3 in series 2, which was School Reunion. And so many people don't like this episode, and I really, really don't know why. It's a fantastic episode. Everything about it is amazing. I've only got one nitpick, which I'll get to, but of course the main showdown, the main highlight for this fantastic story is the return of Sarah Jane Smith, which for modern fans was just a treat that we got to experience Sarah Jane in our era, and for classic fans it would have just been such a nostalgic moment that they must have all absolutely loved. Because if there was one companion to bring back, it would be Sarah Jane Smith, let's be honest, and it had to happen eventually, and I'm so grateful it did. Her chemistry with the 10th Doctor I thought was amazing. Of course, K9 came back as well, and just like Liz, K9 slipped right back into Doctor Who as well. It was just such a fantastic pairing, and it's amazing to see them back. And what I liked the most about this story is how relatable it was to me. Because as a 10-year-old, of course, I was going to school, secondary school, around about the same age, maybe a little bit younger as the children who were actually in this. And, to watch this, you go around school as a child. I mean, I don't know if this was just me, it might have been. And you always wonder, what's school like at night? What are my teachers like outside of class? And this episode was just such a great, relatable episode to all the children watching, because you got to see the teachers turn into krilitanes at night, and you got to see what schools are like in the dark at night. And I thought that was just such a great aspect of the story, one that I don't know why, even though that I don't go to school anymore, it sticks with me. It's just such a relatable episode I absolutely love. And the Krillitan are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Another classic reference in themselves. They came back in this episode. All the Krillitan were brilliant, and Anthony Head as the headmaster was amazing. Honestly, what a villain he is. I love Anthony Head as an actor, and if there was one other character for him to play, it would be the Master. I just think Anthony Head was amazing. There was that scene around the swimming pool, where we got to really delve deep down into the Doctor's emotions. And then there was the other one where Rose was like, oh, she's humping the Doctor's leg as she does. And he was just like, you can spend the rest of your life with me, but I can't spend the rest of mine with you. And I love that line because he's basically dropping Roses to say, stop humping my leg, stop following me, I'm not going to be spending my rest of my life with you, so just shut up. I love that bit. But, yeah, the ending I thought was amazing with K9 sacrificing himself. It was so sad, and it just made you emotionally invested in K9 all over again. And I like the way that the headmaster was like, you bad joke. He was like, affirmative, and he blew up the school. That was so good. And a beautiful moment at the end between the Doctor and Sarah Jane. And he rebuilt K9. So, what a beautiful episode. One nitpick was Rose. Jesus Christ. What a bitch she was in this story. All it took was for one of the Doctor's old friends to walk back into his life, and she looked at Sarah Jane, and she was so disrespectful to her, because Sarah Jane is one of the Doctor's oldest, greatest friends, and just because the Doctor found her again, Rose was giving her dirty looks and, being all sarky to her, and it was just so bitchy. Rose is just an absolute bitch. I hate her. I honestly do hate her in this story. The way she treated Sarah Jane Smith was awful. I'm glad that they made amends in the end, but they shouldn't have had to begin with. I know companions, having a go at each other, that's always good to watch, but I just thought Rose was a complete and utter bitch in this. But apart from that, this story was fantastic. I can hardly find any faults in the story whatsoever, so I'm stuck between an 8 and a 9, so I'm just going to be sensible and give School Reunion an 8.5 out of 10. So then, Series 3, Gridlock. Again, this is another story what people will really disagree with me on, and I can imagine a couple of people really disagreeing with me, because on polls and stuff like that, and votes, I see a lot of people not liking Gridlock, and I've seen it, in the recent issue of DWM, which I'm hoping to get. We know that has all the rankings on, and I feel sorry for Tom having to do a worst to best marathon. Good luck, mate. You're going to really need it. But yeah, Gridlock's quite low on all the polls and votes that I've seen, and I don't know why. Because a lot of people really dislike this episode, and I am not afraid to say I quite enjoy it. Of course, I'm not saying it's the greatest episode to ever grace Doctor Who, because it's far from, but it's also far from an awful episode that's, unbearable to watch. If Gridlock's on, I will always watch it. I really do like it. One thing that I like about it, that I think many people don't like about it, is the setting. I just love the premise and the setting of it. I like the way that we go back to New York, that place. I like the way that we go back to that, and I like the way that it shows that, back in New Earth, it was a very bright, very bright, colourful, happy environment until you obviously got into the hospital itself, and then it just turned into this really down in the dumps, slumpy, dirty, decrepit sort of city where everyone was trapped in the motorway. And I like the setting of all these people trapped in a gassy, horrible motorway. I like the isolated setting, and that there were Macra sat underneath, and that people got captured, and if they went too low, they got killed. I really like that, because it's in such a dark, scary environment, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And when Martha got abducted, she could have been in any of them, millions upon millions of cars. So when the Doctor went looking for her, I really liked the variety of characters that he met. I thought that was a very nice touch. And I like the way that he could have found Martha at any moment. I thought it was quite an unpredictable episode that I really could not take my eyes off watching. So some people will not like Gridlock. I understand that. It's not the greatest episode ever. But me personally, I really enjoy it. And I love the ending when the Face of Bo gives his final breath to save all those people. If that's not a beautiful ending, I don't know what is. So Gridlock, like I said, not spectacularly fantastic, but not goddamn awful either. So I'd probably give Gridlock a 7 out of 10. Now on to the series 4 episode Planet of the Ood, and one thing I've noticed about the episode 3 so far, well, I'd say in Russell's era, because wait till I get to Moffat's era. Russell's era, then none of them are extremely amazing, none of them stand out in many ways, and none of them are awful either. And again, you know, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but Planet of the Ood is another episode that doesn't stand out to be the greatest, but it's not the worst. It's just one that I would go back and enjoy. And one thing that it touched upon, which I thought was very nice, and I love it when Doctor Who touches upon delicate subjects, is slavery. And the way that the Ood were kind of kept slaves and how badly they were treated, it made you really feel sorry for them. And considering that, you know, we'd been and showed the Oods in the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, we were shown that they, you know, got possessed by the demon, the devil, whatever you want to call him, and they were extremely evil creatures who showed no mercy. And people kind of get lost and forget that that's not the Ood deep down. They were possessed, and it showed the real side of the Ood, the beautiful side of the Ood as well. And I was really invested in the Ood in this story, and I hated it when they were getting beaten and whipped and stuff. It was horrible to watch. And the villain, I can't remember his name off by heart, but I thought he was quite Panto-esque at times, but very, very evil. And he was a character that I really wanted to punch in the goddamn face. So the Ood and the villain I thought were very good, and the Doctor and Donna were as well, because, you know, when Donna became the full-time companion, I was a bit doubtful because I thought she was too stubborn and too straight with the Doctor, and she wouldn't have too much fun and there wouldn't be too much emotion. But in this episode, as you can see on the screen, there was a very beautiful scene where she heard the Ood singing and she started to cry, and again it just made me feel even more sorry for the Ood. It's just a beautiful story that touches on such a lovely subject. So I don't get why people don't like this episode. And the ending, it goes from delicate to pretty graphic with the transformation at the end. But I thought that was fantastic, transformation at the end. And yeah, at the very end we get told that the 10th Doctor's song is ending. I bet all of our hearts dropped when we heard that line. But yeah, Planet of the Ood, another great story. It's not up there with the best, but it's nowhere near the bottom. It's just a really enjoyable, beautiful story. I'd also give Planet of the Ood a 7 out of 10. So far in this episode, you know, we've been able to sit back and just nicely talk about some nice episodes, some enjoyable episodes, and yeah, it's been nice to just sit back and talk about them and relax. But now I get to sit forward, grit my teeth, rub my hands together, and rant about victory of the Daleks. Oh my God! This episode is the most mitigated piece of multicoloured shit ever. And the really annoying thing is, it started off well. That's what annoys me. Well, I wouldn't say it's the most thing that annoys me. What annoys me the most is on your frickin' screen. It started off really well with the 11th Doctor meeting the Daleks, and I love the 11th Doctor's reaction, because I didn't expect him to react in the way he did. He got very angry, he was smacking the Dalek with the hammer, so much that I even felt sympathy for the Dalek, but believe me, all sympathy went out the window, and about 40 minutes later I was like, Jesus Christ. So it was all going well, until what you can see on the screen right there. On what level, why would it even cross anyone's mind, anyone who has the littlest bit of a brain or a single brain cell in their head, to turn the most vicious, iconic, scary, evil villains in Doctor Who history? Who the hell thought it would be a good idea to make them multicoloured? Who thought that up? It's just absolutely ridiculous. I know people sit there and try and justify it and say, oh, it's because they all had different ranks, you know, it's a good way of highlighting different ranks. the fact that that Dalek's orange doesn't show it's a rank. It shows me it's a flavour, but it doesn't show me it's a rank. The Daleks that are tolerable, the white one looks great. The blue one and the red one, just okay. But the fact that they made a yellow Dalek and an orange Dalek, it's like they wanted to humiliate them. They took the most iconic villain in Doctor Who history and they just threw them to the ground, painted them a different colour. I mean, what were they expecting? Were they expecting us to just go, oh, the Daleks look so good, different colours? I mean, it's like, would you guys be happy with them turning the Cybermen purple? Of course you wouldn't. Exactly. You wouldn't be happy with them turning other monsters different colours, so why would the Daleks have to change colours? Of course, they've been slightly different colours over the years, but, it's making them bright yellows and oranges is just ridiculous. And I thought any intensity or build-up was just throughout the window when them Daleks appeared, and then the Doctor thought, oh, I'll confront them with a jammy dodger. It's like they were trying their goddamn hardest to just rip this episode to shreds, and they succeeded. I mean, I don't know how much cannabis they were smoking while writing this. I don't know what the hell was going through their minds, but an episode that was building up quite well was just shut on uncontrollably with the multicoloured paradigm pieces of shit and the Doctor going... I mean, how can the Doctor go from banging them with a hammer, being extremely angry with them, to then confronting them with a jammy dodger? And the Daleks fell for it. It's just ridiculous. Ridiculous! And it ended with them flying planes into space and shooting the Daleks. For one, how the hell can planes fly in space? And why the hell would the Daleks suddenly just decide to fly away when they're being shot down? In Dalek, we got one Dalek taking down an entire army, it took down the entire West Coast. And yet you've got like multicoloured Daleks, just because their beam gets shot out, they decide to go away. My God, this episode is just a ridiculous piece of crap. The Daleks were just embarrassed and humiliated. I've never been able to look at them the same way again, and the Doctor really didn't help. Victory of the Daleks gets a 2 out of 10, and that's being generous. So, when you thought that we couldn't get any lower in this episode with Victory of the Daleks, we then continue to another awful episode with The Curse of the Black Spot. Now, it's not as bad as Victory of the Daleks. I don't think anything can be. Well, a few certain episodes can be, but I'm not even going to go there with them. The Curse of the Black Spot, again, was another extremely bad letdown of a story. And one thing they've done very well in Moffat's era is, well, I say well with massive, massive hints of sarcasm, is that they've got our hopes up so very high with an episode or a villain or a character, and then they've dropped us from such a great height. And they did that with pirates. I went into this story thinking, oh my God, pirates are going to be in Doctor Who. Just like when I saw vampires would be in Doctor Who, I got my hopes up. Werewolves, dinosaurs, all these amazing creatures, witches were going to be in Doctor Who. My hopes were through the roof. And I don't know if I'd have went into the story with just neutral thoughts and my hopes weren't that high, I might have not been let down as much and I might have enjoyed this more. But, you could say the fact that I went into it, with such high hopes, that's why I came out even more disappointed. But after rewatching this story, it's just terrible. It's just such a cop-out ending. It's not what I expected, for starters. And, Series 6, I thought, had an awful story arc and very good episodes. And there was only 2 or 3 episodes that I really didn't like, and this is one of them. The pirates were extremely misused. It wasn't the setting or the premise that I'd expected. The siren, I thought, was just terrible and forgettable. And I thought Amy in the pirate suit with a sword, I thought that was incredibly cringy. So I can find this episode quite unwatchable at times. So yeah, definitely The Curse of the Black Spot is one that I would not go back to in a hurry. It's a very forgettable episode, and I hope if they ever do bring pirates back, they really make an improvement on this episode. A very forgetful, awful episode. I would give The Curse of the Black Spot a 3 out of 10. Oh, well, I can take a breath from the ranting, and we can end the series of reviews of all the episode 3s on a bit of a high note, I guess. And I've not spoke nicely of Series 7 so far, and can you blame me? We've had Asylum of the Daleks and dinosaurs on a spaceship. I mean, try and think of a good point about them two, really. But it's nice to end on A Town Called Mercy, which is another great story, and unlike The Curse of the Black Spot, it had a great premise, it had a great setting, and it delivered this time. The Wild West. And Series 7 Part 1 was extremely weak, in my opinion. There was only A Town Called Mercy and Angels Take Manhattan, which were really good episodes. So, yeah, A Town Called Mercy is fantastic. This, excuse me, the setting in the Wild West is something that we've all wanted, in Doctor Who. And as a gamer, you'll probably be fond of the game Red Dead Redemption. And I was playing that game heavily at the time that this came out. So it was even better, really, to see the Doctor, Amy and Rory in the Wild West. And, yeah, the setting was fantastic. The characters were amazing. And the gunslinger, I thought, was pretty good. And the dynamic I liked about this episode is that you had Jex, who was called the Doctor at the beginning. He started off being the good guy at the beginning of the episode, and the gunslinger started off being the bad guy. But as the story progressed, Jex slowly became the bad guy, and the gunslinger started to become the good guy. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And one guy who nearly became the bad guy in the story was the Doctor, because that scene where he got Jex and he threw him over the line and he was about to shoot him, and he looked up and they were like, "Could you really do it?" And he was like, "I really don't know." It was, honestly, I gasped in shock, because I genuinely did not know if the 11th Doctor was going to shoot him, and that's just Matt Smith's acting right there. That's what I give credit for there. So yeah, I thought that side of the Doctor was very good, because Jex was quite a dark character when you think about it. He killed all of them people, and he made them into these cyborgs, to fight his own, war, to fight on his side, and yeah, what he did to all them people was quite dark. And I like the way the Doctor guilt tripped him, when the Doctor was sat in his ship and he got to see all the people that he killed, and it made the Doctor incredibly angry. And I love seeing the 11th Doctor get angry. So yeah, it was really good to see a character like Jex, who we'd started off seeing as just a really small, fragile old scientist, who deep down was this really dark, dangerous scientist who'd done terrible things. And it really flipped the episode on its head, and the gunslinger became the ally as well. So I thought A Town Called Mercy is a great episode, really good storytelling, really well written, a very enjoyable episode I'll go back and watch. So I'd probably give A Town Called Mercy a 7.5 out of 10. So then, to conclude, what is my favourite episode 3 to go into my best possible series? It's quite a difficult choice, this one, because I don't think any of the episode 3s truly stand out from one another, apart from, obviously, Victory of the Daleks and Curse of the Black Spot. Them two are absolutely horrific, so they can just forget about them. They're thrown out the window. It's between, if I was to name 3, I would say it's between School Reunion, A Town Called Mercy, and Don't Hurt Me, but Gridlock as well. I thought Planet View just didn't have, as much as it was a beautiful story, it didn't have that much that stood out to me. And if I was to have all of these episodes in front of me, the one that I would pick to watch first would be the one that I think had a lot more depth to the story. It related to me in more ways than one. It had so many beautiful moments, and it had the return of possibly the greatest companion in Doctor Who history, on top of a fantastic villain in the Krillin. And I find it very hard to fault this episode. So I'd say just beating A Town Called Mercy and Gridlock, my favourite episode 3 of Modern Who to go into my best possible series is School Reunion. So before I end this video, and before you all bombard me with hate comments, let me answer a couple of comments from last week's video, which was episode 2's. My first comment is from Rocklorn, I think I've said that right, who asks, are you going to do the Christmas specials? My answer to that is yes, I'm going to do the Christmas specials. The setup, and as you'll see, the chart I have where it shows the episodes, I've got just the normal episode 1 to episode 13, that'll just be in all the episodes from 1 to 13 in the slots. The number 14 on the chart will be Christmas specials, and the number 15, which will be the last episode, is just a special episode. So I've got my favourite series with 13 episodes, my favourite Christmas special to go with that, and then my favourite just special episode altogether. So yeah, I will be having Christmas specials, and that'll be on week number 14. Yet another Doctor Who fan says, the end of the world, despise it, makes me want to cry, it's so boring, nothing pulls you in, it's generally sloppy in all aspects, 2 out of 10. Tooth and Claw, thrilling episode with a small cast and a few settings.
just like a classic, but with better CGI, 9 out of 10. Shakespeare Code, reasonably good, but constant forced romantic plot between Martha and the Doctor is painful to watch. Other than that, 6 out of 10. Fires of Pompeii, one of the best historical episodes in the whole 50 years, but nothing ever makes me want to see it again. Other than that, great in all aspects, 9 out of 10. The Beast Below, I don't know why people hate this. The plot work, it's a clever idea. The monsters are creepy and different. The acting, especially from Matt and Karen, is superb, and the episode is generally great. 9 out of 10. Day of the Moon, what can I say? 11 out of 10. Dinosaurs in a Spaceship, this episode is bearable to watch at the very most, but still better than the end of the world. In conclusion, the Day of the Moon tops this list definitely. Thanks for another great video, and also, will you do a worst possible series? Very good comment there. Well, going through there, End of the World, I wouldn't say I despise it, but 2 out of 10, that's fair enough. Tooth and Claw, like you said, I absolutely love it. Shakespeare Code, I guess I get what you say when you say that Martha and the Doctor are quite painful to watch at times. I'll agree that they are in certain moments, but I wouldn't let that take too much away from the actual episode. So 6 out of 10, that's okay, I guess. Agree with you on the Fires of Pompeii, except I would definitely go back and watch it as many times as I please. Beast Below, obviously it's one of your favourites. I just don't get the fuss about the Smilers now. I did once upon a time, but now I look at them and I just don't really care for them at all. But I agree with what you said about the acting. Day of the Moon, what can you say? Well, tell me, what can you say? It's not bad, I guess. It's just not an episode that I particularly love. It's a great episode, don't get me wrong, but I think there are better. And Dinosaurs in a Spaceship, exactly, I agree with you. It's just about bearable. So when you ask me, will I do a worst possible series? It's crossed my mind to do a worst possible series, but the problem with that is I'd have to go through every episode again. So it'd be like episode 1 of my worst possible series, I'd be going through all the episode 1s again, and the same for the episode 2s again. So I'd basically be doing exactly the same thing, except I'd just be picking a different episode at the end of it. So I don't think people would want me to go through 15 more weeks of basically repeating myself, just picking a different episode. So what I might do, and comment below if you agree with this, is after I finish my final episode of this best possible series, I could just do a little video afterwards, the week after, just summing up my worst possible series, because throughout this series you're going to hear my worst one anyway, because I'm going to go through every single episode, and you'll probably gather by my ratings and my rants which ones I hate the most. So maybe an episode after this is finished I might just sum up my worst possible series. So yeah, comment below if you want me to just do that at the end. And if you do want to see my worst possible series, because I definitely want to rant on that. My final comment is from Rablenkov, who says the title Dinosaurs on a Spaceship was a fairly obvious reference to snakes on a plane. If you recall, Moffat stated that he wanted the writers to write it like a movie poster, thus some of the episode titles reference the title of a movie. For instance, Angels Take Manhattan is clearly a riff on The Muppets Take Manhattan, and Journey at the Centre of the TARDIS is a homage to Journey at the Centre of the Earth. Well, I completely agree with you there, and that kind of thing annoys me when they base the titles of episodes off movies, and that's what I hate about Series 7. The way that they basically tried to mimic movie titles and movie posters and try and make Doctor Who this blockbuster thing, and every episode was a separate standalone blockbuster movie sort of thing, and it just didn't work. You know, Doctor Who's a TV show, it's never really strayed away from that, so don't try and make Doctor Who something it's not. You know, it's better, and I'll say this a million times, put it in the 13 straight episodes, have a couple of single, standalone sort of episodes which kind of go away from the main story arc of the series, but then have two-parters. You know, that's the problem with the recent series format. They've just tried to go out of their depth, really, and it's not worked. And have you noticed most episodes, what they've based the names off other movies, have been terrible. Dinosaurs in a Spaceship, terrible. Angels Take Manhattan, I thought was pretty good. Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, well, my opinion changes. And you know, not just them, other episodes in like not in Series 7, like the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. That was a little homage to the line The Witch in the Wardrobe, and that episode was just awful. A Christmas Carol, basically the exact same story as A Christmas Carol, awful. So there've been plenty of episodes which have tried to mimic movies and mimic other famous books and stuff, and Doctor Who, as much as it's a show that goes back to to historical figures, and it references the real world in more ways than one, I think that it should just stick to what it is, and that's a TV show. It should be independent. It should have its own titles, its own stories, have references, to real life. Obviously, it has references to historical figures, and I'm a sucker for episodes like that. But don't try to, to make episodes like famous books or like famous movies, because it's just too much of a rip-off, and it just gets compared to the movie or compared to the book, and most times, more times than one, it ends up being rubbish. So I completely agree with you. Doctor Who needs to stop it with that format, and it just needs to be itself, which is just Doctor Who. So then, guys, thank you for watching this week's episode. As always, drop a like on this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment below your favourite episode 3 of New Who, and put that into your best possible series, and comment below your best possible series so far with your episode 1, 2 and 3. And of course, I'll answer them in next week's video, where I'm going to be going through all the episode 4s. But until then, guys, I think I will be back this Sunday for a live discussion. Every week we say we're going to do one, and then something will get in the way. So as long as John Hurt stays away from all of us, we should be doing a Doctor Who discussion on what we know so far about Series 8, considering it will be June by then, so kind of like a June update sort of thing. But yeah, we're going to be going through everything we know so far about Series 8, and yeah, if you want to know any updates on who's going to be in it, who might not be in it, any absences, any possible people who could come into it if we need people, then just go to our website, which is at the bottom of your screen, like our Facebook page, our Twitter, and that's the best place to keep up to date. So, thank you for watching this week's episode, guys. I'll hopefully see you this Sunday, and if not, then it'll be next week for the continuation of our Bad Doctor Who marathon. Which, seriously, can that get any worse from the Wedding of River Song? We'll find out. See you soon.